Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. More Rose City Comic Con conversations. I was grateful to catch up with my friend David Walker in Portland and dragged him away from his booth for a soundbite. I always enjoy picking his brain on social justice and just catch up to see how he's been doing. Conventions are great because you make new friends. It was inevitable that Cully, Hamner, and I meet, as we are both friends of Greg Rucka. Kind of like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, all my comic ties can be led back to Rucka. Again, these two conversations take place at RCCC, so the sound isn't the best, but I wanted to give you a look at con life. It's always fun to chat with the creators on the floor, so I thought I'd give you a small slice of Comic Con world via the podcast. My favor, as usual, is to please continue to share this podcast with others, and if you would be so kind as to rate it and leave me feedback, I would appreciate it. If you want to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, you can visit my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to make a donation. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan. Now, on with the show.
Hello, David.
Hey, how are you?
I'm a little overwhelmed, to be honest, because I haven't been to a con since the last 2019 Rose City Con, I think. I don't think I've been in this environment. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure I have my mask tomorrow. Because I've been a little bit like, oh gosh. And I just got the COVID shot on Friday before I came.
Okay.
So not that it's maybe kicked in yet or anything. It's not just COVID. I got flu shot too, but it's a lot. But it's also been exciting because look at here we are in person.
In the real world again. Yeah, no, it's I've done a few shows over the last 18 months, but it's still like, holy crap. And for the most part, I wear my masks, but everyone needs to see my beautiful face. Right
obviously. And and it is just us. We're in this press room that's very echoey, but it is just us, which is kind of nice because outside of this, there's just like madness.
It's insanity.
Yeah, it's a little overstimulating. It's funny. Everybody thinks because I'm so loud, I guess, that I'm an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. So it takes a lot out of me, these events. I go home and then I'm like, oh.
It's like it takes me about a minimum of a week to recover from a convention.
I was going to ask.
And depending on the size of the convention, so if it's like San Diego or New York, it might be a week or two. A show like this might be 3 or 4 days, but one day at a show is like 4 or 5 days in the real world. I mean, the doors open at 11, 12, and then they close at 8, and so you're
on.
The
whole time. And you've got to be really friendly and nice. Not that you don't want to be, but it's like exhaustive because it's like, okay. And I was watching you and I was like, and everybody with their fans. And it's so warming though to see the excitement in their eyes, in their demeanor, and they're just so thrilled for this whole thing to be back. So it must be in some ways nice though, because as creators, you guys work in your home, in your office, and so you get out.
You're sequestered, and then of course we're coming off of 4 years, or 3 years, I guess, of the pandemic, which, in my mind, it's still not over, right? Mm-hmm. We're just, it's going to come in waves for the next several years. But I forgot how much, I was on an average year, I was probably doing anywhere from 10 to 15 shows. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so to stop doing those suddenly, and it's like, oh, okay, it's August. I should be going to wherever, July was always San Diego. March was always Seattle. October was always New York. September was always this show here. WonderCon was always April. And then there were the other ones thrown in. There would be and suddenly it all went away. And it was like, why am I going crazy? And I haven't recovered from it, right? My whole crazy life, pandemic life is still, there's still aspects of it that some of the worst habits, it's like, when was the last time I took a shower today, right? I can't remember, and it's like,
no one's going to see me.
There's a moment and I'm wearing the mask today on the floor and I'm like, man, I got a mask on and someone's got some body odor. And then I'm like, I'm doing this. It's like, it's like, no, okay, it's not me. So,
Just have like a little Febreze like around you, and just kind of have a big potpourri bowl or something to kind of.
But that's one of the, honestly, that's one of the hardest things for me has been during the pandemic was like, I wasn't going anywhere for days, especially in like 2020, days in a row. So it's like, when did I shower last? I can't remember.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
I did want to thank you on air also. And Aaron is here from the Kauai Comic Con where you and Greg did the virtual Comic Con that first year. And he wants to meet you. He's here roaming around. So I want to thank you in person for that because that was so lovely and it reached that audience who still wanted to feel connected. But, speaking of you and Greg and Portland, and I honestly, any opportunity to come to this con in particular, I do want to make an effort because it just seems like all the cool kids are here.
There's a lot of them here. Sometimes you forget. I mean, there's some people, with Greg, I see Greg fairly regularly in the real world. There's other people who live in town that I only see, maybe not just at this convention, but only at conventions. And then you forget. It's like, oh, don't you live right down the street from me? Like, what is this? And Greg happens to be, Greg and Jen, his wife, they live fairly close. They're like a 10-minute drive from me. And I was just over there a couple days ago, just hanging out. So I get to see them, but so many others I don't. So.
Yes. And I have been so fortunate because Greg and I have really formed a special bond and we talk very frequently. But it's funny because one of my friends who runs a comic book shop in Beverly, and he said, I just can't believe you're getting Greg to talk so much on your show and that you have all these things to talk about. It's like amazing. I was like, he just wants to vent about the shit in the world right now. And this is a great platform to do so, but he can be pretty intense.
Just a little intense.
A little bit. But yeah, I love Portland because like literally you guys are all here. And I'm like, oh, check. Kelly Sue is here. Black Faction is here. Like you guys are all here. And I was super excited to come and actually meet you in person because I think we've only met on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Because I didn't see you at 2019 here. I didn't get to meet you in person then. It was like kind of after the fact. So yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because like sometimes you forget, like, oh, have I met you in person? I was telling this to somebody today. There's an artist that I work with, Marcus Kwame Anderson. Like, we've become really good friends. We've never met in person, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even like he lives in another part of the world. He's on the other side of the country. He lives in upstate New York. But like, oh yeah, it is. I mean, that's one of the miracles of the modern age, I guess, is that you can know somebody, work with somebody, talk to them on the phone, Zoom, all that sort of stuff, and never, it might be years before you meet them face to face.
Yeah. And so this has been very nice. And this is just kind of a teaser podcast episode where we're just giving everyone a little, oh my gosh, here we are live in person. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're coming at the end of day one, but we still got 2 more days to go.
Oh, yes.
Do you feel, and as we wrap up, like, okay, I have to sit at the table the whole day, or do you feel like you can step away? Or is it like
I'll step away periodically, but it's like, I treat it like a job. This year I'm only doing 1 panel. Normally I do, most shows I'll do at least 5 or 6 panels, but I wasn't asked. I was only asked to do the 1. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to try to sell books, engage with fans. If people want, someone brought by their portfolio and I looked at that. It was beautiful. The work was gorgeous. So it's like, this to me, it is a job, and if I'm away from the table, that's like the coworker that you have that takes like 5 cigarette breaks in an hour. And it's like, what are you doing? I used to have a job where I would take what I called mental health breaks and I got in trouble for it. And I was like, all these people who smoke go out multiple times a day. No one says anything to them. It's like, if they can do that, I can go out and walk around the block. And that also keeps me from choking the shit out of all people.
Exactly. So, I think we always do want to kind of avoid that.
Yeah.
I wanted to congratulate you because I haven't gotten to speak to you since, but Bitterroot, Black Panther, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My brain is failing me, but awards and accolades and really great response, and congratulations on that because it's so well deserved. I think it would take another hour for us to really delve into the themes of those books and how important they are right now and how important it is to be having these conversations. You and I were talking off air just about the work I'm doing even in education. Like we're gonna listeners, viewers, watch. We're gonna really get into this because you are really kind of so versed and knowledgeable about social justice and all of the systemic racism that's been happening or that's been in existence and has just become kind of a snowball.
It's emboldened and it's, things that some people thought we gotten rid of. No, it just went and hid in the closet or in the basement, and now it's come back out again. It's just like, they're like roaches. You think you exterminate them, but they come back. So
and so
did I just compare those people to roaches?
Facts. You are, but yes, thank you for doing creative work that also addresses such important issues because sometimes we need it to be digestible in different mediums.
Yes, exactly.
And your work allows for that. While there's some challenges, right? Of like, how do we entertain, but then how do we not lecture? Or maybe we entertain and lecture, I don't know.
You can do both. You can do both, but it's, a lot of it is about trying to find ways to engage people. And one of the arguments I have with some of my colleagues who work in, education and academia is like, if we can't talk to, especially if we're dealing with young people, if we can't talk to them in a language that engages with them and they check out, then what are we doing? We're not doing our job properly, right?
Yeah.
And I always come back to I'll mangle it, but there's a quote from Malcolm X where he's about to give a speech and he says, in the few moments we have left, let's talk to the people of Earth in a language they can easily understand, right? If you can't talk to people in a language they can easily understand, if you can't engage them in one capacity or another, then what are you doing? And especially the people that are practicing to oppress us, that are practicing to take this totalitarian hold on our society, they're talking to their audience in a language they understand. They're talking the language of hate and oppression. All these people get it, so we have to turn around and counter in a language that can be understood.
Thank you so much for that. We have more to say on this, and I'm going to let you go. But I told Paper Asylum I would ask all my guests today, and I forgot on the last one, so I'll have to go get a soundbite on that. But that comic book shop would like to know who you think would win between Superman and the Hulk.
In a fight?
Yeah.
Oh, it's easily going to be the Hulk.
Okay.
Yeah, Superman is no. It's the Hulk all the way.
All right, Team Hulk over here. All right, thank you so much, David. It's amazing to be with you in person. We'll continue this conversation. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Cully.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to finally meet you.
You too.
Yeah, we were talking off air on our run to this glamorous press room at Rose City Comic Con, where we are right now, that we have our mutual friend of Mr. Greg Rucka.
Yes.
And you've known him for quite some time.
Yeah, 2000, I think I said 2008, 9, something like that. Yeah.
And how did you get your start into comics? Like, what made you go, this is what I'm going to do?
I don't remember because I was really young. Mm-hmm. So it's like I learned to read pretty early. And I don't know that I learned to read from comics, but I learned to really like reading from comics. It made it a habit. So that was kind of I probably started learning to read when I was 4 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And, comics were a part of that.
Yeah.
And at some point I realized somebody did this for a living. Somebody drew those pictures.
Yeah. And so do you remember what your first, or, the early comics, like what was the one that you picked out that... now it's going to date you. I know.
I don't remember specifically. It had to have been they were DC books. I know it was Batman or Wonder Woman or something like that. There were probably some Harvey comics in there, Richie Rich and
And so did you always have kind of natural gift for art, or is it like something you just practice?
I mean,
or did you just kind of...
It's funny because I've never been the kind of artist that does that draws beautifully, for lack of a better term. It's always been a means to an end. So I was always more into the design aspect. I was always more into the storytelling aspect. So it was always a skill that I sort of learned in order to make the storytelling happen. That's always what I've been into. I've always been into writing and creating stories and that sort of thing. And it just, drawing was a natural way into that for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so kind of fast forward into time, when did you get your quote unquote first break? How was that? A lot of creators say, well, I was at the cons and I was showing my portfolio.
There was a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
had gone to a lot of cons, and I had gotten to be friends with a lot of the artists who later became the studio that I was in, which was Gaijin Studios.
Okay.
And so Brian Stelfreeze and Adam Hughes and Carl Story and like all these guys. And, I had a portfolio and I was showing it around. And at some point, somebody took my samples back to their editor, and their editor gave it to their office mate, and their office mate gave me a call and gave me my first job, which, was not like a short story or something like that. It was a Green Lantern series.
Right.
It was a monthly. It was like the first thing I did.
Wow. Okay.
So, which is, as I understand it now, kind of unusual. And I got to make all of my mistakes in front of a lot of people.
Right.
And that was kind of how I started.
So you had a lot of opinions, a lot of help.
I was bad. I was really bad at that point. So it's like I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't. Yeah, it just was. That was how I got my start.
Awesome. And so fast forward, because I love talking about Greg Rucka while he's not here. And I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I actually prefer to do it when he's here. But you get to collaborate, and being that he and I have a really special podcast dynamic. I'm so fortunate. It's just like been absolutely awesome. But like, what can you share about Mr. Rucka that, I think a lot of people know him to be very intense, that we were talking earlier. That's
a man of strong opinions.
A man of strong opinions. But really, everybody I've spoken to does really enjoy the collaboration process.
Well, I think that he has he's intense because he gives a shit. That's his thing, if I can say that.
Of course.
He cares. I mean, this is important to him. He doesn't just dash off stories. He involves himself in the stories. The last time that we worked together on a DC book, which was a question story during the Convergence event that we worked on, the story was about Renee Montoya dealing with her father, who was in the hospital, who was dying.
Yeah.
He was writing this while his father was dying. And the whole thing was very personal to him. I think it's some of the best stuff we ever did.
Yeah.
Because he was going through it. I knew what he was going through. And so I didn't want to whiff on my end.
Yeah.
And, I think of all those kind of Convergence events that they were doing at the time. It was one of the special ones in my book. I get that from people all the time.
Of course.
That they really feel that what he was writing.
100%. 100%. That definitely comes through, of course. And so what are you working on now?
Well, as it happens, I'm working on a book with a certain Mr. Rucka.
Yes, we've heard of him.
Am I allowed to sort of talk about what
I think so, because I'm not going to air this till after we.
Okay. I'm working on a comic called Ruby Actual with Greg. It's the first time we've worked together in a few years. And it's a labor of love. And it was one of those things where it came out of the two of us sitting in a bar in Leeds, England, during Thought Bubble, angry about any number of things. We were just sitting there just bitching up a storm about the political situation, which at that point was still very fresh. And we wanted to do something to just express anger.
Yeah.
And he was just like, let's just do it. Let's do something simple. Let's just do something, just a revenge story. And that is what it is. But of course, us being us, it's developed a lot of subtext along the way. And it's going to be a really cool book. It's a female protagonist. I think that if you like our question stuff, you're going to like this book.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, super excited. Do you know when to expect this?
That's a good question because we've taken our time on this, but I think that we're shooting for spring, summer is kind of what we're looking for.
All right. Well, that is.
But don't quote me on that.
I'm quoting you on it because it's recorded and therefore it is in stone.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Deadline. Yeah. I could be.
No, actually, we need it. We need to.
So are you asking me to help? Push this along because I'm very good at that.
Okay.
I can be very. I've known to be a bit pushy.
Somebody needs to.
Okay, all right. Well, there it is, everybody. So we will talk more about it as time goes on, and probably leading up to it, we can kind of maybe do a full fun conversation and maybe something a little more in depth. But let's get back to the con. All of your fans are awaiting.
Right.
And
both of them.
Yeah, you guys are all so humble. Everyone says the same thing. But thanks for sitting to talk to me today.
My pleasure.
And we'll have you on again soon.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to The Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.